if I could have this spinning, because we never know if it's going to land on its head or on its feet. I don't know which team is in 7th place, guys, but go buy the Nongshim bundle. It opens in 11 hours. Great. Welcome, YouTube. It's Chobra, and we are back with another week of VCT Pacific. We're now looking ahead to week 4, which means we'll quickly recap what happened in week 3. Going to talk about any big points that I noticed in those matches, and then we'll go ahead and update where we see each team's power ratings right now going into week 4. And then, of course, we'll update our Pickems for week 4. So without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so week 3 of Pacific was mostly pretty straightforward. So we started with Gen G DFM. I mean, this was no big surprise. DFM continues to look pretty lost. I think one thing I just want to mention about this game is afterwards, Art really did look just like super stressed and just kind of frustrated as the IGL, and I totally get why. I mean, I think one of the things that DFM is struggling with right now is they just can't ever figure out their own game plan or whatnot. It was a pretty rough time. I mean, Art also obviously not performing well individually either. The silver lining for them is GN continues to still be kind of fragging out okay on his own, but on, dude, what? I just realized Munchkin was 7-0 on first kills, first deaths. That's actually crazy. But otherwise, Gen G looked really good. Charon looking good. Foxy9 came back into the flow. That was the real big thing about this game. Foxy9 is back into the fold. Just was sitting out on this one, and Foxy9 looked so much better than he ever has. To the point that some of us were theorizing that maybe, Suggest was put in just to show Foxy9 like what to do at a macro level, and then it's like, all right, you already have the aim, just like, you see what we mean, you see what we want you to do, and then now he's like, he has the VODs and he's like, okay, he downloads it and he's ready to go, because he looked much more capable in terms of making his own decisions, taking space, things like that. So I think that is a huge plus for Gen G. We'll see if it continues. We'll see if they stick with Foxy9. In the interview, he kind of implied that he would be striving to continue to do even better in the future games. Let's talk about RRQ versus Zeta Division. Another one that should have been pretty straightforward. The only caveat would have been that I thought maybe there was a world where if Zeta really continued to improve, but at like an exponential rate, that they could maybe take a map off of RRQ, keeping things a little interesting, and then that would kind of give us another look at, can RRQ like bounce back and win and close out a best of 3 when they weren't quite expecting, or whatever else it might be. So that was the big question, but that did not happen. 13-6 on Split, pretty rough here for Zeta, and then 13-9 on Haven. Just a standard game, but this string of rounds is not very convincing here for Zeta Division. Despite Deb going 28-17. So a little bit rough, but I think the good news would be that RQ kind of switching things up. Magnet on the Yoru, Jemkin on the ISO. It makes a lot of sense. Magnet likes to try to go for these high-risk plays, the X-Factor plays. He likes to have some sort of movement capabilities, things like that. He's always kind of preferred that game style, whereas Jemkin is much more like, I want to take my shots. So I wasn't surprised if they were playing this. I was surprised that they were playing it, but I was pleasantly surprised. But in terms of, why isn't Magnet playing ISO and Jemkin playing Euro, etc., it just made sense to me when I watched it, and I think the way they played it out, it looked great. Crazy Guy on the Omen looked quite good, and that obviously lets Cushy play in his comfort role of Silva. So overall, I think RRQ, this was a pretty good statement from RRQ, but also on paper, this is a game they should have won anyway, so it's not anything to really write home about. On the side of Zeta, I mean, I think they're still improving. I do think they're still on the right track, but as I've said repeatedly, I think that's also a long road ahead, because it's a very fundamental change that they need to worry about. PaperX versus Boom. Okay, I did say this week was pretty straightforward, but I think this was pretty straightforward. I mean, if you were a PaperX fan, that's one thing, but come on, everything was pointing to Boom winning this one. Boom's been looking better and better, and quite frankly, they continue to look so good. Famous goes a little crazy on this one. Almost 70 kills across the 3 maps. Berserk's, in fact, I've been absolutely praising him, and he didn't quite get to show up as he normally does. I think he still had some very big impact kills, but he wasn't just, snowballing kills left and right. But on top of that, NC Slasher does really well. He continues to also be perhaps the next, or maybe just equally or maybe even more in terms of most improved on this roster. So I think this was a big, big win for Boom. Winning the Pearl especially, right? Something that PaperX has always kind of liked to play. They made some changes. Now, Patman was playing. That was the other question was, okay, he's now in. There's obviously a lot of questions about, I mean, is this the right 5 that are you using? I mean, we don't know. We don't know if they're going to switch it up further, quite frankly. I mean, we can only wait and see until they tell us or show us. Patman, I mean, looked fine, I think. I don't think there was really any problems there. The most unfortunate thing is, of course, like Devi had a rough day, and especially on the fracture. I mean, that last round, it lives on in everybody's head. The self-flash in the 1v1 is rough, and that was the second time he had done that map. So I think showing a lot of discomfort with that agent, which does beg the question of, like, was this the best combo of players and agents? Because that was clearly just a complete disconnect in terms of comfort level. You know, the Ascent, I think they even said in the interview they didn't expect PaperX to pick it. Even then, I think this comp can still do better than this. It looked pretty overly dominant from PaperX. So a little bit of lack of adaptations from Boom. So it does seem to point that they're still a more prep-heavy team, you know, that they lean more towards prep. But at the end of the day, it's not like they got completely shut out, and they were still able to bounce back on the third map. So you just got to win 2 out of 3. So I think they're on a good track. I will just say this, and we'll say it again in the power ratings. At this point, like, and even before this match, I was in the boat of, like, I'm just waiting for stage 2 for PaperX. You know, like, if they do better, they do better. I'm still not going to read into it. If they do worse, they do worse. I'm not going to read into it, just because it's like they have to change so many things that they probably don't even know exactly which one has the most impact. That there's like a lot of iterating to do here with this team. We don't have to talk about this match. It was an okay match. It was a pretty good match. Really shouldn't have been a best of 3. It should have been a best of 1. No, in all seriousness, huge great start. Nongshim is back to playing Neon for Dombi, which is overall great, but I do think, but like I've said this from kickoff onward, what happens when they play the Neon, what happens when this team plays the Neon is they tunnel vision. They tunnel vision into a certain style of play. They tunnel vision into a certain strat book, and they don't really adapt in terms of macro strategy too much. In fact, some of the most adaptation I've seen when they're playing the Neon was actually on Bind in the grand finals against Boom at Ascension. And that was really good, but that was also Bind, which was like their best map by far. So I just think, and obviously Neon was different back then, et cetera, but I just think, like, they get away with so much that I think they forget to really expand and adapt, which is why even during kickoff I had mentioned, even before I was signed with the team, that I would love to see them, like, try more duelists, just so you can break that shell again, because we've seen them play it before Neon was strong. So it's like, you can do it, you just got to remind yourselves on what options there are. And I know they tried the Waylay, but like they tried the Waylay as if they were playing the Neon. And I still don't, I'm not a huge believer of the solo Waylay as much as I actually really like Waylay. I think Waylay has a lot of uses. I think if you're playing solo Waylay, you have to really work around it. Now, more and more teams are actually making it work, such as Talon, as they have proven in both the maps they won, which is kind of, there is some irony here. And that Nongshim had to kind of give up on the Waylay, and Talon's like, let us show you how to play it. So that was a little unfortunate. But in fact, I would say that Talon, I think Primi is one of the best uses of the Saturate, the Slow, the Hinder that I've seen, just like that ability alone. And then obviously, like, Jagomo's still making it work. There are now more players that are making it work in more teams, but that always begs the question of, well, is it really the Waylay or is it the player? And then, you know, like, you could have done this maybe even better with another agent. But this one was definitely, I think this one was a good proof of, like, Waylay's a good counter to Neon. Because you see the Neon coming up, and if you're confident like Primi, you take the first duel, you hinder him, and then you back out. And it's just like, especially if you're kind of playing all in, kind of like Nongshim did here, you're kind of screwed. Listen, I think for Talon, it's like you got completely destroyed on the Haven. This was rough. The Haven was pretty rough. Nongshim was definitely running laps around Talon. It looked like Talon just, like, wasn't woken up. The teamwork wasn't quite there. I mean, Killua has, like, let's just say it like it is, 0 assists on the Yoru. That just showcases what was happening in this game, in my opinion, where it's like, nothing, you're never quite working as a team to break through this, right? You might be getting frags individually here and there, but it doesn't really mean much at that point if you're playing the Euro ISO. So that was rough. But afterwards, 13-8, I mean, this was... I think it was going okay in the first half for both. Grand and Nongshim did get the pistol, but afterwards, Talon starts to run away with it on the defense, and that is where they shined, on the defense. So they were so prepared for the Nongshim attack. So credit to Talon, absolutely, they were the better team, 100%. In terms of Nongshim, listen, I'm just gonna say it. I think this was the wake-up call they needed to be like, listen, let's work with what we have in stage 1, but we got to start thinking ahead for stage 2. Like we have to change something fundamentally where we have a deeper strat book, and we're able to kind of regroup and reset to that very, very well. Where you're able to kind of reset, slow things down a little bit, and not rely on just getting the entry kills. And quite frankly, that's not how they necessarily played. Like, I know everyone's going to be like, yeah, but Neon was OP back then, and that's true. But if you think about how they played before, it wasn't always about Dombi like having to get kills. Like there were decisions that Francis was making in terms of like positioning themselves that was already better than I would say maybe even now. So I think there's just a bit of a mental block on the team where they feel they have to play this way and make it work. Sorry, we spent a lot of time on that one just because obviously I care a lot about that game. But the rest we don't really have to spend too much time on because it was pretty straightforward. Oh, other than the fact that Estrella joins DRX. Yeah, Estrella joined DRX. That was kind of random, but it looked really good. He actually goes plus 15, and he looked really in line. He's allowing them to flex around a little bit, I guess, more comfortably. Freeing gets to play the Tejo now. Flashback is still playing double duelist here, which is still a little odd, but it's working out better and better. He looks like he's getting more and more comfy. It seems like after all the hullabaloo, which obviously I think no matter how much of what is true, like the process of how this all happened maybe wasn't the greatest. Perhaps this was a win-win for both RRQ and Estrella. I'm sad that Bane is sitting out. I root a lot for Bane just because he's been through so much, and I think he is improving a lot. But also I think Estrella just perhaps adds more. Like if you're thinking about side calling and just comms, Estrella just has more experience. Like there's just no way around it. On the flip side for GE, I mean it's a rough start. It's a rough start. The Cypher lock, we're just not seeing any of it really being set up properly. Patrick, who definitely seems very uncomfortable on stage still. Like I'm willing to give him time just because it's his first time like playing on a stage and things like that. That's fine, but it is rough. So I think that's something they have to work on. But also it just seemed like they weren't playing their game plan, right? I think it was a lot better on split, as you can tell. Even like they're stringing together 5 rounds, things like that. They're stringing together 5 here. So like even if it's a bit streaky, that means you're having your streaks, which I think is good. That means that when you had a plan, you were making it work. But even Elevated said it in their post-match conference of like, I'm sick and tired of us not showing up on map 1. So that's something they have to work on. I think they're aware of it. So we'll see, because that's a huge part. T1 versus Team Secret. The bottom line here is Team Secret almost made it happen. Team Secret almost made the classic once a year Team Secret greatest upset of all time happen. They go with the Icebox pick against Meteor's Reyna. They were able to shut it down nice and early. Jeremy on the ISO shows up. It actually looks pretty good. So that was good news. And then they went to Lotus and Buzz said, no, we're done here, and dropped 30. That's really just the best way to sum this up. All right, so this is where we were for week 3, just a snapshot of where we were. Teams that are going to have to move. That's one. Okay, let's put some question marks here. Okay, so the bottom teams, Team Secret, DFM, honestly, we're slowly bringing Team Secret back up. At the very least, they showed to me that they are trying. They're trying to change some of their weaknesses, right? They're putting Jeremy on the ISO. They're going for some big sweep and changes, which I like that, ISO chamber, very contact play style, things like that. They have the good anti, and now that we're getting into the later part of the year, like they will have more anti material. I know that a lot of us credit to Warbirds, which I think is probably true, but at the end of the day, like the player should also be more comfortable in that. Whereas DFM, they look a little lost. They look a little lost in terms of, they almost look like they're regressing every week, and not because they really are, but just because they just can't seem to figure it out. And I don't feel bad doing this, just because even Art looked like completely stressed out and frustrated by the end of the game, which just tells me that things just aren't working, right? Like your prep isn't working. You're not able to get the read on the game, things like that. So I think DFM really has to go back to the drawing board, unfortunately. Team Secret, therefore we'll give them one bump up. Zeta, I mean, like, Zeta's improving, but are we really putting them over Paper X? I don't know. Listen, like, Paper X, like, I'm just at that point where I'm like, I'm waiting. Like, Paper X might drop down to 12th. They might even get first. Like, I'm just not going to read into it. So I don't think, no, it's not about being brave. It's just that I don't know if, I mean, they could lose to these teams. They could. But the thing is like, I also don't know if GE, like, I have hope for GE. I think GE can get better. But also, it just seems like, I think the real problem we have right now is there are teams that are just getting better faster. I think that's the real thing, right? I don't think it's that teams are necessarily getting worse. So at which point, like, hope doesn't really cut it anymore, right? I believe that they have the potential. I think they can do better, but we just haven't seen it at this point. Let's see how this feels. This kind of, my gut tells me that this is how I feel. Because I think Paper X is still above GE, and are they though? I don't know. Are they? With Patman, I think. Get out of here with this is hate. I was glazing GE like none other, more than anybody else before the season started. I'm just saying, they have potential. Any one of these teams could. I mean, quite frankly, GE potential-wise can even beat Talon. Like, they can beat Talon, they can beat RQ by pure potential. But, like, we just aren't seeing it. Listen, if Elevated's out there saying, well, we're just not showing up on freaking game one and I'm effing sick of it, I mean, well, you tell me how you're going to fix it. Because until you fix it, I can't trust you guys, right? You guys are just down 0-1 every single best of 3. Like, I mean, at that point, and then you still have to warm up in game 2. Like, and I'm not saying Zeta looks great off the start every single time, but Zeta, I think, is at least playing their game plan every single time. And I think they're always improving week to week, whereas GE, I think, are a little bit stagnant right now. What am I doing with the rest of these? I think Talon looked like a very volatile rank 6. Like, let's just say without relativity, I think if in a vacuum, Talon looks like a very volatile rank 6 team. Boom looks like a top 3 or 4 team. RQ feels like a solid 4th team, and Nongshim seems like oh man, this hurts, but if they feel like a stable rank 6 team. And quite frankly, I'm not quite sure where to put Gen G. I just don't know what to do with these 3 teams. Dude, what is with Gen G and the Indonesian teams? Why can't Gen G just ever figure it out? Either just be worse or be better. I'm gonna say this as a Nongshim partnered streamer. I think if I had to rank between Talon and, not just because of the result, but from what we saw from there, I think Nongshim's weaknesses are easier to exploit. Whereas Talon's weaknesses, oddly, even though they changed rosters, is on them, right? They either fall into their own weakness or they don't. So I actually think that makes Nongshim weaker in terms of a power rating, because if your opponents can know how to counter you, then that's rough. Obviously, I still have hope that Nongshim can do very well, not just in stage 1, but overall for the whole year. But I do think at this point, you're actually almost better off looking at the long term, because I think if you don't fix the bigger things, you might do okay. Like, let's say maybe you get top 6, maybe even like top 4 in playoffs in stage 1 if you really push it to the limits. But I don't know if you're going to Toronto. And if you don't go to Toronto, if you don't fix the bigger things, I don't know if you're going to Champions, right? And for Ascension teams, both Boom and Nongshim, your goal has to be to go to Champions no matter what, right? Like, you could get 12th place this stage and it wouldn't matter if you can go to Champions in stage 2. So if that is your goal, I honestly don't know if you, like, I'm not saying you shouldn't try. You should try with what you have, but I don't know if you're putting all your resources into just brushing up on the 1 or 2 things that you're good at to make that even better, rather than saying, let's start to fix things fundamentally, right? Do enough that we can still get to playoffs and have a shot at getting top 4 or whatever, right? Get a couple extra points. Obviously, each one in the regular stage matters. So, like, you should be trying to win the last 2 matches against Team Secret and Zeta. That you should do. But I do think that they're better off looking at that, because if you don't do that, it's just going to be the same weaknesses that you've had actually since Ascension. And I think that's where the big difference between Boom and Nongshim is showing, is that Nongshim was the better team last year. But with that close loss, Boom had to take a really hard hit and accept what their biggest weaknesses were. And they've clearly fixed that, both through coaching and roster change and individual changes, like on their own. And I think Nongshim, this is your chance to learn that, to get back into being a better team than other teams. So I think that has to happen here for Nongshim. So for now, we're going to put them in 7th. So if I just put this out in the current setting, I think listen, until it happens, you can't trust these two in their power, in their relative power. Until it happens, you cannot trust that RQ is going to be stronger than Gen G. But is Gen G 4th though? I don't know if in a vacuum, I don't know if I trust that Gen G is 4th. But I don't think, I mean, I almost might feel better doing this, quite frankly. Man, people still don't trust in Talon. Talon beat the best team in the world called Nongshim Red Force, and you guys don't trust in Talon? That's crazy. That's crazy. But Gen G always beating RQ doesn't necessarily mean that they're necessarily a stronger team, but I think at this point, like, whoever beats each other is the stronger team, because it is going to be about composure, et cetera, et cetera. And I just don't know. But Talon's so volatile still, from what we've seen, right? Like, the consistency has to be built up. But I think based on how they played this week, I really do think that the form this week, I think is above. I think it's above 6. Talon is the least consistent. 100% agree. I mean, Talon is the least consistent for sure. If I could have this spinning 360 degrees, because we never know if it's going to land on its head or on its feet, like, that's what I would do. If I could make this a GIF, this is what I would do. This power rating would look like this. And it would just be like, yeah, but is it Talon or is it a team that we don't know? Like, that's what it would be. That's what it would be. Because honestly, like, you just don't know what's happening with this team. But I think if they land on their feet, I think they're 4th. Yeah. So again, this is just powering. You know what? We're gonna lock it in. We're gonna lock it in. We're gonna lock it in. The reason for Talon over RQ is for now, like, and RQ is gonna feel that they're robbed of this, and that's fine, because I mean, I don't make the schedules, so that's just what happens when the schedule doesn't quite favor you. Like, I think RQ Nongshim was a game where they could have really proven that they really have it on lockdown, and they didn't quite. And then the remaining games are now games where they can prove that they really have it on lockdown, versus like, oh, we still can't close it out and we don't know how to really push our advantage, right? So like, you did it against weaker teams. That's great, right? Even though some of them were improving, that's amazing. Happy for you, but I don't make the schedule. So until I see it, and quite frankly, but I'm seeing like Talon, even if they lose the first maps, still able to do that. So I just think the snowballing potential is there. This is our power ranking. I don't know which team is in 7th place. Guys, but this is our power ranking for power ratings for going into week 4. This is how we look at all the VCT Pacific teams, and that's how I feel. The reason I'm okay with Nongshim in 7th is just because I think your weaknesses have been exposed now. And I'll say it like it is. I think if Nongshim played RQ tomorrow, after now having RQ having watched the Talon versus Nongshim match, I think Nongshim loses. I do. I actually think so. So I think it's going to be a bit of a longer haul for Nongshim to fix it. I have full faith that they can. But this is power ratings, though. It doesn't mean that I think Nongshim's going to finish 7th. I think they're going to win all the remaining matches. I think they're going to Toronto. There's no doubt about that. But they would be an underdog, is what I'm saying. So yeah, T1 and DRX, I mean, I just see no reason to change it. DRX looks good, but so does T1. Boom is looking super, super impressive, so good for them. That's great. And then Talon, I'm relying on, or not relying, but I'm believing in the ability to snowball. I think is so important, so I'll give that to them. Gen G looks a little better. I can't in good conscience put RQ above Gen G, because until they do it consistently, Gen G will always be the upper hand against RQ. Nongshim gets pushed down to the bottom 6 because I think they've shown clear weaknesses now, so they've got some work to do, which I totally believe they can. PaperX, I mean, listen, I'm kind of indifferent at this point, but they have the fragging power, so I think they're still a top 8 team. Zeta continues to look better. GE seems very stagnant right now, whereas other teams are getting better. Team Secret barely looks better than DFM, and DFM looks stagnant as well. So it really is a story about who's getting better and who isn't actually getting better. But most importantly, chat, the real important thing is go buy the Nongshim bundle. It opens in 11 hours. Great. Thank you very much. Let's go to the Pickems. Okay, so week 4, Nongshim ran first versus Team Secret. Nongshim ran first should be winning. Absolutely, I think 100 times for sure. And then DRX versus Boom. Oh, this one's going to be a good one. Let's come back to this. T1 versus RQ. I think T1 still closes it out. RQ, I think this should be a really good game, actually. I think T1 versus RQ should be a really intense game. But while RQ might be getting better, I think T1 is just like, they're so thorough. They really are a brand new team, in my opinion. Really, they look like some of the best right now. The fact that they didn't drop coming into this stage also just speaks miles about their fundamentals being improved, I think. Gen G versus GE. Right now, I think you have to, Gen G looks like they're improving, and GE looks like they're still figuring stuff out. So I think you have to give it to Gen G. And then Talon versus Zeta. Talon should win, but they go win-loss, 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 so maybe they lose here. Quite frankly, this one might even be a 2-0 because Talon again. The reason I said RQ and Zeta might be a 2-1 is because I don't really see RQ snowballing that hard. They did this time, which means Talon, who I think are really built for snowballing, should be able to do it even better. And then DFM versus PaperX. Oh, yeah, what a time to have this rematch. What a time to have this rematch. There's no shot PaperX allows it happening. I don't care if DFM have spent the last 3 months prepping for only PaperX again. There's no way. There's no way. So DRX versus Boom, oh man. Honestly, I'm gonna give it a punt. I think this is a really close game. On paper, I think just because most people still have to favor DRX. I think it's like a 55-45. I think this is going to be an intense match. I think this will be a very intense match. But I think this is one where Boom can do it. I think DRX should win, but I think this is a small upset. But I'm going to bet on the upset for this one. All right, so those are my pick'ems for week 4. Listen, in terms of Nongshim, I know I was a little down on them just because I think some clear weaknesses were shown, but that just means now we can start moving upwards again and grow as another new team. And I have full faith that they are capable of doing so. So I think they're going to be just fine. I think they should be able to beat out Secret. Secret looked like they started to finally wake up, but you know, they haven't gotten out of bed yet. So Nongshim should be just fine. Of course, we are co-streaming all the matches, but unfortunately, except for, in fact, I'm missing my 2 favorite matches of this week, the Nongshim Red Force one and DRX versus Boom, because I will be away for an event. So unfortunately, no watch party for that day, but we will be watch party the other day. So if you'd like to join in and watch live together, make sure you're catching it either here on YouTube or over on my Twitch. We're live on both platforms. And also, I think there were some big changes in the power ratings this week, so let me know what you think. Let me know where you think each team stands going into week 4 down in the comments below. That's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.